Senate will come to order. Chair would like to recognize the senator from the 50th for a point of personal privilege to introduce the doctor of the day, one of the doctors of the day.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor to introduce the second doctor of the day today, Dr. Thomas Hatchett. Providing expert women's health services for over 26 years, Dr. Hatchett is a trusted physician specializing in gynecology and obstetrics. He offers personalized care at Habersham OBGYN in Demorest, Georgia. After finishing his Bachelor's of Science from Presbyterian College in Clinton, South Carolina, he was accepted into medical school. Dr. Hatchett earned his Doctor of Medicine from the Medical College of Georgia at Augusta University. He then completed a residency at Bayfront Medical Center through the University of South Florida in St. Petersburg. Dr. Hatchett is now board certified through the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology and is a fellow of the American College of Obstetrician and Gynecologists. He also maintains professional affiliations with the American Gynecological and OBGYN Society. Currently, he is the chief of the medical staff at Habersham Medical Center in Demorest. He's the former president of the Advisory Board of Georgia, as well as a former board member of the Hospital Authority of Habersham County. Being able to speak both English and Spanish gives him the opportunity to serve patients who may otherwise struggle with language barriers. I may be biased, but he has a very impressive resume. One of the most impressive things is he is the father to the senator from the 50th, and it's a great pleasure to introduce my dad, doctor of the day, Dr. Thomas Hatchett.
Just want to report to the doctor of the day that your son has been extremely busy as a freshman down here, so him coming home and telling you about all these bills he's carrying, they're actually happening. That's good. Chair recognizes the senator from the 20th for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I respectfully ask for unanimous consent to remove House Bill 498 from the table.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
House Bill 498 by Representatives Watson of the 172nd and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to property tax exemption so as to expand an exemption for agricultural equipment and certain farm products held by certain entities to include entities comprising of 2 or more family-owned farm entities and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Rules recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Mullis of the 53rd, Chairman. The Senate Committee on Rules offers the following substitute to House Bill 498. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 48-8-3 of the OCGA relating to exemptions from sales and use tax so as to exempt certain sales of mechanically propelled watercraft by a dealer licensed under this article to an individual who resides outside the state under certain conditions and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator from the 20th has moved that House Bill 498 be taken off the table. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it's taken off the table. The chair recognizes the senator from the 20th to present the bill.
Good afternoon, good evening, almost colleagues. House Bill 498 does 2 things. It provides parity and really a level playing field for the sale of motorized or mechanically propelled watercraft to out-of-state residents, and it also provides clarity and ad valorem tax relief for the family farm. The first section deals with the mechanically propelled watercraft. Florida does not charge sales tax on watercraft sold to out-of-state residents, and South Carolina does not charge sales tax on watercraft to out-of-state residents, and Georgia does not charge sales tax on watercraft to out-of-state residents as long as they leave on their own power. So it's a, if they were to sail away, I guess, they would not be charged sales tax, or if the dealer delivers them out of state, they do not charge sales tax. This will just make it clear and consistent that if it is a sale to an out-of-state resident for use out-of-state, not in the state of Georgia, and they provide a copy of their driver's license or proof of residency, there would be no sales tax. Under current law, family-owned farms are exempt from ad valorem tax on their crops and on their farm equipment. Family-owned farm is defined on line 40 of the bill: a family corporation, a family partnership, family general partnership, etc. Because of the extreme amount of capital and cost to farm, oftentimes two family farms, maybe their land adjoins neighboring family farms, they go together to purchase equipment or to farm their land together. So this bill would make it clear that if the family farm qualifies for the ad valorem tax exemption individually, then they can join with another family farm that qualifies individually, and that partnership or that corporation would also be exempt from ad valorem tax. Our farmers have been struggling ever since Hurricane Michael, and then we had COVID, and we had commodity prices, go way down because of that and the disruption in our distribution systems. And I think we all realize how important the family farm is to putting groceries on our tables and on our store shelves. So I'd ask for your favorable support of this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
You have no questions.
All right. Ask for a yes vote. Thank you.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 498? The chair sees none. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection or adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Question on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Hallway looks good. Thumbs up. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Chair recognizes the senator from the 45th for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request that House Resolution 144 be removed from the table.
Ms. Secretary, please read the caption.
House Resolution 144 by Representative Williams of the 145th, a resolution honoring the life and memory of Miss Katie Poff and dedicating an intersection in her memory and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Transportation offers the following substitute to H.R. 144, a resolution to dedicate certain portions of the state highway system to provide for an effective date and for other purposes. Senators Anna Vitarte of the 31st and others offers the following Amendment 1 to amend the Senate Transportation Committee substitute to H.R. 144 by replacing lines 466 through 468 with the following. Be it further resolved and enacted that the portion of State Route 61 from north of Old Cartersville Road in Paulding County to the Bartow County line is dedicated as the Chairman Jerry Sharon Highway. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator from the 45th has asked that House Resolution 144 be taken off the table. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and it's taken off the table. The chair recognizes the senator from the 45th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Resolution 144 is a road and bridge dedication bill. It dedicates 21 roads, bridges, and interchanges across the state. With that, I will yield the well. Thank you.
Good thing you didn't ask for that to be risen off the table with that lightning strike like that. Any senator wish to speak for or against House Resolution 144? Chair recognizes the senator from the 31st to speak to the amendment. He waves. All right, we'll take up amendment number 1. The question is on the adoption of amendment number 1 by the senator from the 31st. Is there objection to adoption of the amendment? The chair hears none, and amendment number 1 is adopted. The question now is on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute as amended? Chair hears none. The committee sub as amended is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the adoption of the resolution by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? I just need you to vote. Sorry. I'll talk to you if you want to. Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 49, the nays are 0. This resolution, having received the direction of the constitutional majority, is therefore adopted by substitute. Chair recognizes the senator from the 16th.
Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent that the Senate Rule 4-2.6 be suspended to allow HB 303 to be removed from the general calendar and made in order for third reading and consideration by the Senate.
Senator from the 16th has asked for unanimous consent to suspend the rules to allow HB 303 to be removed from the general calendar and made in order for a third reading and consideration by the Senate. Is there objection? Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
House Bill 303 by Representative Glanton of the 75th, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 33 of the OCGA relating to insurance so as to permit motor vehicle insurance companies to offer a reduction in premium to qualified active duty military service members for motor vehicle insurance policies and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Burke of the 11th, Chairman. Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor offers the following substitute to House Bill 303, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 33 of the OCGA relating to insurance so as to permit motor vehicles insurance companies to offer a reduction in premium to qualified active duty military service members for motor vehicle insurance policies and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator from the 16th has asked for unanimous consent for the rules to be suspended and for House Bill 303 to be read for the third time and considered by the Senate. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and the rules have been waived. Chair recognizes the senator from the 16th to present the measure. Yeah, that's done.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the opportunity to present HB 303. I'm going to address the substitute that was in committee, which is part of SB 112 that passed out of the Senate, 45-3, which has to do with the annual notice on life insurance policies that are paid up, and also the requirement that insurance companies reply to the National Association for Policy Locators to help people find life insurance policies, which has already been passed out. And then I'm going to allow or ask for the senator from the 15th to address the main content of 303.
You have no questions. Chair recognizes the senator from the 15th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a bill aimed at giving some relief to our military service members stationed in Georgia. It is a bill so as to permit motor vehicle insurance companies to offer a reduction in premiums to qualified active duty service members for motor vehicle insurance policies between the ages of 18 and 25, aimed to make sure we can impact that particular group and offer them some relief. And they must be either stationed in Georgia or Georgia is their home of record. There is no question, Mr. President. I'll yield the well or yield for questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. President.
For what purposes does the senator from the 51st rise?
Mr. President, it appears our pro tem has went astray. I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 49th.
I thought you were going to say he went to sleep. Without objection, the senator from the 49th is excused. Any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 303? The chair sees none. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Question on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Including the senator from the 20th. He's writing his grocery list back there. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Chair recognizes the majority leader for a motion.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that Senate Rule 4-2.9 be suspended to allow Senate Resolution 300 to be removed from the general calendar and made in order for consideration by the Senate.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read the caption?
Senate Resolution 300 by Senators Harrell of the 40th and others, a resolution creating the Senate University Fee Study Committee and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Rules recommends that this resolution do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Mullis of the 53rd Chairman. This completes the order, Mr. President.
The majority leader has asked for unanimous consent that the rules be suspended and for Senate Resolution 300 to be removed from the general calendar and made in order for consideration by the Senate. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the rules have been suspended. Chair recognizes the senator from the 40th to present Senate Resolution 300.
Thank you, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, including my seatmate of the senator from the 39th District. If you're watching, we do miss you. I rise to present Senate Resolution 300, which is a study committee to look at university fees. If you have kids or grandkids that are going to a Georgia university these days, you know that for the last couple of decades, the amount of fees has been growing to be a higher and higher percentage of tuition. This is particularly difficult for part-time students because they oftentimes pay 100% of the fees, even though they're going part-time. It takes them a longer time to complete their degree, and so their degree, by the time they finish, costs thousands and thousands of dollars more than somebody who is able to go full-time. And the Hope Scholarship does not cover fees. So we had a pretty extensive discussion about this in the Higher Education Committee, but we didn't feel like we really got everything resolved. So that's why we want to have a study committee during the interim. So I do ask your support for Senate Resolution 300. Thank you, Mr. President, and if there are no questions, then I yield the well.
You have no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against Senate Resolution 300? The chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Question on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Hallways clear. All senators. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0. The resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. Chair recognizes the senator from the 18th for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that House Bill 575 be removed from the table.
Ms. Secretary, will you please read the caption?
House Bill 575 by Representatives Dickey of the 140th and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 48-5-7.2 relating to bona fide conservation use property, residential transitional property, applications procedures, penalties for breach of covenant, classification on tax digest, and annual report so as to authorize on-premises processing and marketing of agricultural products, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Finance recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Huffstetler of the 52nd, Chairman. Senate Finance offers the following substitute to House Bill 757, or 575, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Article 2 of Chapter 8 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to joint county and municipal sales and use tax, so as to provide for the levy of joint county and municipal sales and use tax by consolidated governments and use of proceeds of such tax, and for other purposes.
Senator from the 18th has asked that House Bill 575 be taken off the table. Is there objection? The chair hears there is objection. All those in favor of House Bill 575 coming off the table, vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the motion to take House Bill 575 off the table, the yeas are 33, the nays are 18, and the bill is taken off the table. The chair recognizes the senator from the 18th to present the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, colleagues, as we wind down the day, but it's not over yet. Thank you for listening to me about House Bill 575. This is the OLOST legislation that we have, other local option sales tax, OLOST, that is available for consolidated governments to avail themselves if they want to have a second penny sales tax. It's not just pursuant to the statute. It's not what we do. All this does is authorize the local consolidated government to have a referendum that goes to the people, and if they vote to have an extra penny sales tax added to them, then it becomes effective. As I said, the referendum is a necessary part of this. The terms of this were carefully negotiated over the course of a long period of time with the House members, and so we made some changes to the bill as it came over from the House. They are okay with this, and I have their assurances that they will accept the changes that we have made, and I would ask your favorable consideration. There is an amendment in the book, an amendment number 1 from the senator from the 26th, which I understand that amendment is out of order as this bill has been engrossed, and so the amendment cannot be considered. Furthermore, quite frankly, even if it were considered, I would ask that you disregard and not vote for the amendment. I would ask that you vote down the amendment, but I understand from a procedural posture, it's not subject to being considered. So with that, Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 53rd for a question. He waves. Somebody show them how those buttons work. You have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well and ask that your favorable consideration for House Bill 575. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 26th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you call low-down, dirty politics. Low-down, dirty politics. This is what you call it. For over a year, the senator and I, from the 18th, worked on a deal. He had a problem because the old law says 100% rollback. We worked on it, and we worked on it. We finally reached an agreement. Then I get a real estate mongrel on the other side in the House, and a farmer. And guess what they tell me? Well, the folks in Monroe County and Crawford County, you raising the taxes on them. The farmer in Crawford County is already at 8 cents. They passed the TIL, the transportation tax. So he at 8% already. But he's mad with David Lucas because I'm trying to see about the folks that I represent. I represent 85% of Bibb County. And the deal we worked out is this. In the first 10 months of it going, if it's approved, that money will go into the general treasury. Starting with the 11th month, the rest of it will go to 100% rollback. Now, it takes about 3 years to get to the rollback because, number one, you got to put it on the ballot. Then people got to vote for it. And then once you do that, if they vote for it, then you got to institute the tax. And then the third year, you get all your information so you can roll it back. And that's to all property tax of people who own property tax. Now let me say something to you. I'm trying to see about my constituents. I own property. I get to take credit for the taxes, but the renters pay taxes to me indirectly. They just can't claim it. Now, this bill, which is a general bill, and then they go and gross it after I objected to it the other day, affects Athens and Augusta. It's a general bill with local application, but Athens and Augusta have to jump through the hoops in order to meet it because what it says is it set aside a $5 million dedication. Now, after the first year you do the OLAWs, if they approve it, according to my records in Bibb County, it's about $32 million. So the first 10 months, that money goes to the general treasury. Now, what I'm trying to do is give my county folks a surplus. Now, if somebody tell you consolidation is the best thing since apple pie, you tell them they're telling a lie. We raised taxes two times, and folks told us you wouldn't have to raise property taxes anymore. I'm trying to give them a surplus so they can do the things they need to do in making bill. We're not going back and create a city and a county anymore. It takes money to run government, not water, money. We've got to hire deputies. We've got to deal with blight. Now, what they propose to do from the House side, and then they stripped it out. They stripped out another bill and put it in. They sneaked it across here in the wee hours when only we could get here. What they're doing is saying that it'll be a $5 million rollback. In Macon, Georgia, a mill is $4.28 million. So if I bring in $29 million, you're going to take 20 off the top. But the third year, you're going to get an automatic 100% rollback. I need the money to take care of the hole we had. See, we had a hole. We equalized the taxes between the city and county residents. And the mayor did it in 2 years, took $40 million out the revenue stream, and we couldn't pay our bills. Now that's what happened to us. But now I got a real estate mongrel and a farmer trying to tell me that I'm finna cause them taxes. Something wrong with that deal, ladies and gentlemen. And for those of you who in Athens, if that tornado had hit Athens rather than Qaeda, you'd have been trying to find some money. So it affects Macon, Georgia, but it affects Athens and Augusta too. Columbus already had 2 pennies. They can't get no more. So what'll happen if Athens or Augusta wants to get to the second penny, they got to jump through the same hoop that they just put in the bill for Macon. But the worst thing about it, I came a minute, y'all engrossed the bill. I represent 85% of the county, and you engrossed the bill. I'm trying to see about the folks I represent. And yes, I own real estate. And it's to my advantage to pass things just like it is. But it's wrong what you're doing. You got libraries, you got recreation departments, you got all the amenities in a community, the Coliseum, the baseball diamond at Luther Williams where we put the $1 million in for a baseball team. Yes, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. Just like the song I did when I was telling my wife how much I loved her. I said, baby, I just want to thank you. But there's something wrong with this kind of politics. A real estate mongrel and a farmer dictate to Bibb County what we're going to do in Bibb County.
Senator has yielded the well. Any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 575? The chair sees none. For what purpose does the senator? Chair recognizes the senator from the 18th to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not going to speak long. The senator from the 26 and I are friends, and what he said about our working together on OLOST is absolutely right. We worked for a long time trying to come to a compromise, and we've worked for probably 3 years trying to make it happen. But it's been a long and difficult road, and I'm not going to comment on his comments about the folks in the other chamber and what happened along that winding road that brings us to where we are now. But I do want to make sure that you understand, if you represent a consolidated government area, you can still avail yourself of the OLOST. The proposal here actually makes the way that you can have the referendum more liberal. It is easier. The way that it was set up under the original OLOST, quite frankly, was set up for Columbus, Muskogee specifically, and because it had some property valuation freezes in it, it made it almost impossible for anybody else to use that. So we have changed that in the process of Senator from the 26 and I working on this together. And I appreciate him, and he worked in good faith, and I appreciate the emotion, and I appreciate his passion. I would just simply conclude my remarks by saying so much of what happens here is so often a product of compromise. Quite frankly, the positions that some of the House members took on this weren't exactly what I wanted, and certainly is obviously not what the senator from the 26 wanted. But without the compromise that was made that's seen in this bill, they were not going to offer the bill, and we would, as Macon Bibb, would not have an opportunity to have an OLOST or avail ourselves of that if the folks in Macon Bibb voted in. And so with that, I would just ask for your consideration of this. Again, it's the same step as always. The people in Macon Bibb have to decide that they want, by referendum, to vote this in. And based on that, I would ask for your vote for House Bill 575. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Senator has closed debate. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 29, the nays are 23. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Chair recognizes the senator from the 3rd. Oh. I take that back. My fault. I'm just trying to confuse you for a second. We've got a special action. Chair recognizes the senator from the 37th for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate insist on its substitute to House Resolution 449.
Mr. Secretary, will you please read the caption?
House Bill 449 by Representative Smith of the 133rd and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 9 of Title 25 of the OCGA relating to blasting or excavating near utility facilities so as to revise the Georgia Utility Facility Protection Act to enhance the processes for locate requests to require that 911 be contacted if an excavator damages a gas or hazardous liquid pipeline and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 37th to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, this is a utility locate bill that y'all so graciously passed with only 3 negative votes. I'd ask you to insist on our position on House Bill 449. If there's no questions, I will yield with.
You have no questions. Senator from the 37th has moved that the Senate insist on its substitute to House Bill 449. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the Senate has insisted on our position. Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate adhere to its disagreement to the House substitute to SB 195 and that a conference committee be appointed.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
Senate Bill 195 by Senator Mullis of the 53rd, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 2-23-3 of the OCGA relating to definitions regarding hemp farming and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator from the 28th has moved that the Senate adhere to its disagreement to the House substitute to Senate Bill 195 and that a conference committee be appointed. Is there objection? The chair hears none. Chair appoints the senators from the 1st, the 2nd, and the 28th for our conferees. Now the chair recognizes the young lady from this young senator from the 3rd.
Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent that House Bill 244 be taken from the table.
Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
House Bill 244 by Representatives Hogan of the 179th and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Code Section 33-8-8.3 of the OCGA relating to the funding of services or reduction of ad valorem taxes in unincorporated areas of counties and powers and duties of governing authority so as to include flood risk reduction in the enumerated list of county purposes for which county ad valorem taxes or county corporation taxes based upon gross direct insurance premium shall be used and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Burke of the 11th, Chairman. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator from the 3rd has moved that House Bill 244 be taken off the table. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it's removed from the table. The chair recognizes the senator from the 3rd to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I bring before you House Bill 244, which is an important step in addressing coastal island flooding in Georgia. The bill will benefit communities across the state by permitting local governments to use the existing tax revenue for riverine and stormwater flooding projects. According to FEMA, flooding is the most common and costly natural disaster in the United States, and it has a tremendous impact right here at home. Just last year, Governor Kemp declared a state of emergency in 121 counties south of I-20 due to heavy rains. This bill will allow for our communities to prepare for and mitigate the effects of stormwater, river, and coastal flooding. Currently, ad valorem tax revenue from insurance premiums in unincorporated areas are limited to fire, police services, and garbage collection. This 244 would simply add flood risk reduction to the list, allowing local governments the ability to pursue preventive measures regarding flooding. This bill gives local government the final determination on how best to advocate ad valorem tax revenues to best fit the needs of their communities. By permitting counties to use this existing tax revenue for flood risk reduction projects, local governments can enhance the impact of this revenue by using it for the 25% match requirements for FEMA grants. I ask of your favorable condition on House Bill 244, and Mr. President, I yield the board.
Senator has yielded the well. Any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 244? The chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Question on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Senator from the 3rd has nobody to track down right now. You love them all. Chair recognizes the senator from the 24th for a motion.
Mr. President, I ask that we gently lift off House Bill 480 off the table.
They might need a little more than gently. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption?
House Bill 480 by Representatives Washburn of the 141st and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 8 of Chapter 14 of Title 44 of the OCGA relating to mechanics and material men liens so as to provide for the creation, declaration, amendment, notice, and priority of liens for labor, services, or materials performed or furnished by registered interior designers and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Regulated Industries and Utilities recommends that this bill do pass. Respectfully submitted, Senator Cowser of the 46th, Chairman. Senators Jones of the 25th and others offers the following Amendment 1 to amend House Bill 480 by adding after 2 on line 1 the following. Amend various titles of the OCGA so as to change certain provisions related to certain professional licensed in this state, to amend Chapter 40 of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to real estate brokers and for other purposes. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator from the 24th has moved to gently lift off the table House Bill 480. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it's taken off the table. Chair recognizes the senator from the 24th to speak to the bill and the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is a very simple bill. All we're doing is adding the interior designers onto the current lien law. I'll just ask you to vote green on this bill, and we have a friendly amendment from a seatmate from the 25th.
Senator has yielded the well. Chair recognizes the senator from the 25th to speak to the amendment. Amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator from the 24th. The amendment that we added just fits the code section under the underlying bill, and it pertains to real estate agents. If a real estate agent holds in good standing for 3 to 5 years his sales license, then he or she would be available to apply for a broker's license as well. And also with pertaining to broker's license, it allows someone to who's in good standing with their continuing education and everything to apply for that broker's license. If there's no questions, I'll yield the well.
You have no questions. Any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure or the amendment? The chair sees none. All right, first we're going to take up amendment number 1. The question's on the adoption of amendment number 1 by the senator from the 25th. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and amendment number 1 is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Mr. Secretary, will you please close the machine? On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed as amended. For what purpose does the loud senator from the 47th rise?
I don't really need a microphone. Just want to make sure you know that. But I think the screen is telling us that it's time to at least take a dinner break if it's not sine die.
I don't know if dinner's here yet.
Hey, it is for some of us.
Details matter. What'd you buy for us? We're going to keep going. The voting machine is in perfect working order. It's just the display on the screen. So we're going to continue on and take up the next measure while we wait for dinner to get here. Chair recognizes the senator from the 18th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that HB 605 be removed from the table.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
House Bill 605 by Representative Cooper of the 43rd and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 31 of the OCGA relating to care and protection of indigent and elderly patients so as to provide for authorized electronic monitoring in long-term care facilities, to provide for definitions, to provide for consent requirements, to provide for notice to the facility, and for other purposes. The Senate Committee on Health and Human Services recommends that this bill do pass by substitute. Respectfully submitted, Senator Watson of the 1st, Chairman. The Senate Committee on Health and Human Services offers the following substitute to House Bill 605, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 31 of the OCGA relating to care and protection of indigent and elderly patients so as to provide for authorized electronic monitoring in long-term care facilities, to provide for definitions, to provide for consent requirements, and for other purposes. Senators Jones of the 25th and others offers the following Amendment 1 to amend the committee substitute to House Bill 605 by striking criminal on line 257 and inserting in its place civil, criminal, and administrative, and striking proceedings on line 257 and inserting in its place action. This completes the order, Mr. President.
Senator from the 18th has moved that House Bill 605 be taken off the table. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it's taken off the table. The chair recognizes the senator from the 18th to present the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good evening. We're now in evening time, folks. Friends, good evening, colleagues. Bring to you House Bill 605, which is truly an important measure. It is about patients' rights and the privacy rights of some of the most tender and dear people in our society. That is the older folks that wind up in patient care homes, nursing homes, long-term care homes. It provides a framework on when circumstances for cameras can be placed in long-term care facilities. I would tell you that we have a great responsibility as we evaluate this issue. Lots of times we come down here and we consider bills that maybe just changes the sunset on a statute. Maybe it changes something else. But we actually are tonight, I hope, going to set the policy for the state of Georgia on when cameras and hidden cameras are allowed in long-term care facilities. And as you might expect, if you've read the bill or talked to anyone about this, it's a delicate balance that we're trying to achieve. Ultimately, the question you have to ask from a policy standpoint is, do we want to address the prevention of potential abuse in long-term care facilities? Or do you want to focus on after the fact, after something has happened, simply punishing or having an additional tool to punish someone who's not cared for someone properly? The bill came from over from the House. It was substantially revised by the Senate, and quite frankly, in very good ways. Much more liberally, much more in favor of the patient, or the resident, as I should say. I think it's also noteworthy to remind you or let you know that this bill comes from a long-time serving House member, Sharon Cooper, who has a very well-deserved reputation for fighting for the elderly, fighting for patients, fighting for those that need help and oftentimes can't speak for themselves. So, let's talk a little bit about exactly what the bill does and why we have this bill. We have this bill that's being proposed because of a decision that came out 3 months ago in December of 2020 from the Georgia Supreme Court. It was a case of first impression, and it came out and it said that long-term care residents can secretly record what happens in their room. It's the Knuckles v. State case. And it's important to note the style of the case is Knuckles v. State, because for all of you, you recognize, wait a minute, that must have been a criminal case because the state was the party, and you're exactly right. That case was not about negligent care. It was not even a civil case. No one was suing for any damages. It was a criminal case. But a product of the court's holding was that secret cameras can be hidden, or hidden cameras can be placed virtually anywhere in a long-term care facility. And as you might expect, if you think about these long-term care facilities, they have complex privacy issues because roommates that live together, many of these rooms have 2 residents, some have 3 residents. And these folks are facing not the average home life that we have when we go home at night, but they're facing end-of-life issues. They're facing meetings with family members, sometimes feuding family members. Their doctors, their counselors, speaking about issues of their most intimate medical care. So what we have is, with the Supreme Court's decision, if we don't provide some framework for when these hidden cameras are allowed and under what circumstances, now these long-term care facilities are put in an awful position of having new legal exposure because others choose to use hidden cameras without the facility's knowledge or consent. So what does that mean? Does a long-term care facility now have an obligation to sweep the rooms to see if hidden cameras have been placed? Or should they ban cameras and just test the waters? But that's a difficult position because of the language found in the Supreme Court decision that came out in December. So what this legislation does is provide some guardrails, some bright lines, and a framework for which cameras and in which cameras can be used. So the policy that's proposed in House Bill 605 allows residents to continue to use cameras, but it protects the patient's choice and the privacy of their roommates. Basically, I'm urging you, and what this proposal does, it chooses prevention, that is prevention of bad things happening to our most tender folks, over trying to capture a gotcha moment that can only be addressed after the fact. The proposal allows the use of open and obvious cameras in long-term care facilities, and if they're compliant with the code section, that footage, that data, that film can be used in any civil, administrative, or criminal proceeding. Let me say that again. Can be used in any civil, criminal, or administrative proceeding. And folks, from a legal perspective, that covers the whole waterfront. Those are the three circumstances in which anyone might ever want to use those. And the resident or their designated agent, if they're not able to make the decisions for themselves, for the roommate, will get a voice in the process. The statute or the proposed bill specifically addresses what happens if one resident wants this, but their roommate does not want to be surveilled or potentially surveilled. So what you'll see at the top of the bill is the definitions, and we've got authorized electronic monitoring, which is exactly what we're talking about. It talks about being open and obvious, and it talks about and specifically references that the use of an electronic monitoring device, which is audio, video, or both. The facilities in which this statute would apply to is limited to long-term care facilities and not hospitals. So please understand, this is not going to have an impact on hospitals. So for operations, the resident or designated agent decides that they want a camera in their room. You'll find that at lines 33 through 84. The resident fills out the form on a DCH's website. It's there. It's not the facilities form. It's a form that we provide through the statute that is accessible through the DCH's website. And it establishes the content for the camera and any restrictions on its use. For example, the resident may check a box that says, I want the camera turned off when I'm being tended to by my physician, or when I'm being bathed. Now think about how simple those ideas are, that of course no one would most likely want to be filmed under those circumstances. But we're at the position where we have to provide those sorts of privacy options for these residents through some form of legislation, or they won't have that option. It also asks that the roommate or the roommate's designated agent to complete the form, so we know what the roommate's preferences are, and the facilities must help facilitate communications between the requesting resident and the designated agent. The camera is installed by the resident or their family, and if both consent, then the facility can install it for them. A resident must obtain the consent of the facility before using the local area network, and that's just so that they know with regard to connectivity on the internet how it's going to be done. So, with regard to the consent, if a roommate does not want a camera, then the requesting resident will be moved to a different room as soon as circumstances permit. So the bill specifically contemplates what happens if you have one roommate, two in a room, and one says, wait a minute, I don't want the chance of that camera catching me. They would be removed to another room. How about the use of the data that's obtained from the camera that's mounted? Well, open and obvious camera footage will be admissible, subject to the general rules of evidence that would apply regardless, in a civil, criminal, or administrative hearing. If there's a demand or an actual cause of action or an administrative action, then the facility can request at its own cost that they get a copy from the resident. And I want to make sure you understand that this data, this film, doesn't belong to the facility, it belongs to the member, it belongs to the family. However, footage captured on hidden cameras, if there is a hidden camera placed there by someone, actually can be used in the event of a criminal case. There are other protections that you'll find in the bill, that facilities cannot discriminate against the resident or a roommate using or requesting or consenting to or not consenting to the use of the camera. Barring some sort of intentional conduct, facilities will not be civilly or criminally liable for the violation of the person's right of privacy arising out of the use of an authorized electronic monitoring. So, I want to tell you just a couple more things, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. Let me tell you about the legislative history of this with regard to how it came over from the House and the difference of our version and why I think it's better. The facilities, as it came from the House, the bill proposed that facilities may not take cameras that are operating unlawfully. Instead, what we have is that the facilities can move and adjust the camera to make sure that it's being used consistent with their intent, which is found on the form at the back of your bill and would be part of the DCH website. It also says that a camera is not required to be fixed or non-rotatable. This addresses advances in technology and things of that nature. As I said, the consent form is on the website, and the form allows residents and roommates to request. They also incorporated a concession, or engaged in several concessions from folks that we listened to with regard to concerns about the House version. In one way, you see that the form allows residents and roommates to request the camera roll 24/7, if that's what they want. Secondly, the camera is not required to be fixed and non-rotatable as the House did, and the facilities may not take cameras that are operating unlawfully. Instead, the facilities can only move or adjust the camera. There was also 5 points of concern that the GTLA organization had. All 5 of their concerns were addressed in the bill that we have. So what we've really got is a bill that's about privacy and patient protection. And again, you're going to be called upon to ask from a policy standpoint, do you want to do something to set a framework to protect against abuse, or you just want to give one other tool in the event after the fact, after the abuse hasn't been prevented, just to simply document it? You'll find on your desk 2 letters that I hope you find important. One is a March 16, 2021 letter that's on your desk that has about 10 or so different organizations that support the version of the bill that came out of the Senate, that came out of our Senate process that is before you now. And I think you'll find some important folks that are saying this is a good bill and this is what we need. Georgia Healthcare Association, Leading Age Georgia, Georgia Senior Living Association, Georgia Medical Directors Association, Presbyterian Homes of Georgia, Wesley Woods Senior Living, Magnolia Manor, and others that are in the letter. I don't think there's any question about their support for the bill in the way that it presently is before you. But there has been some misinformation and incorrect information, and I know some of my colleagues have received emails from folks that quite frankly are flat wrong. One from the Georgia Council on Aging. You may have received some emails from the executive director there, so we looked into that to try to find out what that was about. If you'll take a look at the second letter that's on your desk, which has the GHCA and GCAL letter, that specifically talks about those organizations' request that you support HB 605 because after careful deliberation and negotiation with multiple parties, it balances the privacy, the dignity, and the safety of the residents alongside the sensitive challenges that increased camera use will present to the providers and caregivers. But of particular note, I'd like for you to read the first full paragraph on the second page of that letter. And as the president and CEO of the Georgia Healthcare Association wrote, and it states, and the date of this letter, friends, is March 27th. I provide this background to note that there has been considerable communication from the GCOA, Georgia Council on Aging, to the legislature and to the members of the CO-Age in opposition to the bill. Yet, there has never been a meeting or call of the actual appointed members of the GCOA to discuss the subject of this bill. While I acknowledge that it might be the will of the council to take a position contrary to that of my organization, such a decision has not been made, and the full GCOA, Georgia Council on Aging membership, has not met. I personally express my concern over such failure and the executive director, such failure to the executive director, the GCOA chair, and the GCOA Legislative Committee Chair in email correspondence on March 5, at which time I requested a full meeting of the council to establish a formal position. Furthermore, I'm concerned that legislators have received correspondence from constituents in opposition to 605 arising from frequent and, I believe, misleading blast emails from GCOA to the co-age membership. You'll see at the bottom of that page that it says, please support 605, which establishes a process for residents and their loved ones to determine whether a camera is right for them while ensuring that the security, the privacy, and the dignity of residents remain at the forefront. Signed, Tony Marshall, President and CEO of the Georgia Healthcare Association. I wanted to address that. So if you've been getting some of those emails, please put it in the context that this gentleman that's president of a well-known organization was willing to put pen to paper in writing the truth about the communications and what the real position of the Georgia Counseling on Aging actually is. There's also, I understand, an amendment that has been offered. I want to tell you about that amendment and why I would ask for you to vote it down. It seems simple at first blush. It says strike criminal on line 257 and insert in its place civil, criminal, or administrative. And then strikes on line 257 proceedings and inserts actions. Let me tell you why this, as we use this word, we all know what the term "it guts the bill" means. This, folks, this friend guts the bill. What would happen if you vote this amendment in would completely allow anything from a hidden camera. And remember, the sole purpose, the main purpose, the driver, is we're trying to come up with some sort of framework, a model that the long-term care facilities can use whereby the appropriate use of cameras is set forth in a statute that the nursing homes can turn to. And equally, if not maybe more importantly, the residents of these facilities will know under what circumstances they might be being surveilled and not. Think about that. Don't our loved ones that are being taken care of deserve to know if they're subject to a hidden camera? So how does this work? Most of these facilities, quite frankly, involve 2 or 3 residents in a room. And even if you assume the most well-intended person that wants to come put a hidden camera to take pictures or view of their loved one, there's absolutely no protection because it's a hidden camera and no one knows about it and the facility doesn't know about it. There's no protection for the other roommates who might get caught with footage while they're in a compromising position, or they're naked, or they're bathing, or they're discussing intimate health care choices. There's no protection. And even if you assume that the camera was placed right there, what happens when someone comes along and moves it? I could go on, but I can see you get the different permutations of things that can happen. What happens when it's not the loving family that hopefully all of you in this chamber have, but a very dysfunctional family where siblings have different agendas on how they want to speak with their loved one in the facility? And one's going to use the camera one way and one's going to use it the other way. And now you get those competing interests. Do you want the residents subject to all of that? Do we want the tenderest of our population being subject to that? I don't think so. So you have a choice. You have a policy choice. On this end of the spectrum, on this end of the continuum, you have the opportunity to pass this bill which says cameras are okay, just make them obvious. And if you do, you can use the footage for anything. If you want to sue the nursing home, if there needs to be a criminal prosecution, if there's just an administrative proceeding, you can do it. Think about the deterrent effect. Oh, and by the way, in addition to the camera being open and obvious, there's a sign outside the door that says, "This room under surveillance, under camera surveillance." Think about what a wonderful deterrent that is. If, in fact, you've got someone in a room that might be subject to mistreatment or not the best treatment or not the treatment they ought to be getting, that camera is going to be the best thing that you can do and that we can do to ensure that they do get the care and treatment that they need. But you have a choice. At the other end of the spectrum is cameras anywhere, everywhere, for any reason. Everything's admissible, even hidden cameras. So you've just denied the resident of the privacy that they can get under this structure. But for what cost? There's no deterrent effect from that. No deterrent effect, but it'll help perhaps if there is some proceeding. But folks, that's the choice, one end or the other. Do you want to focus on just trying to catch people, or do we want to try to prevent the abuse to start with? If you want this end, where you're just trying to catch people, then amendment number 1 is your way. If you want to do something, if you want to set a structure out so that this type of behavior that none of us would want our most tender to be subjected to, we need the structure of an open and obvious camera. And then finally, what is also addressed in the concept of this is the issue and the impossible position that the nursing homes are in. Do they have an obligation to sweep the room every 6 or 8 hours now that they know there could be hidden cameras? Because what's going to happen in this wild, wild west environment that we have, where any camera, anywhere, anytime, is that camera is going to catch someone's loved one, or it's going to catch some resident in a terrible position. And then where do they go from there? Well, they're going to sue the nursing home. They're going to say, wait a minute, you knew there could have been a hidden camera. Why didn't you sweep my room every day to make sure somebody didn't put a hidden camera in here? So what do? And I ask you one other thing in thinking about that end of the spectrum, if that's where you want to go. How many emails, messages, and times do we watch the news at night where somebody at the highest levels of our government and the most sophisticated levels of our business has been hacked? We hear about it all the time. How hard do we think it would be, folks, for a hidden camera to be hacked that somebody paid $50 for at Walmart? And now we've opened these folks up for that kind of treatment. It's a policy decision. I would ask for your consideration of this vote. As I said, it's one where we are going to set policy, but because of, and this is not the first time it's happened, but when the Court of Appeals or our Supreme Court rules and they hand down a decision, it necessitates action to set the model under which how we're going to live. This is one. I submit to you, it is very important. And I would ask for your favorable consideration of this bill. Mr. President, I'm happy to yield for questions.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th with a question.
Does Senator yield?
I do for my friend from the 29th.
Senator, on line 83, the last sentence there says, no person shall conduct clandestine use of an electronic monitoring device to monitor a resident's room unless otherwise authorized by law. So would this statement here mean that if a family member felt that their loved one was being abused or mistreated, that they would be able to reach out to law enforcement, possibly obtain a court order that would allow them to install a device in there in the process of a criminal investigation?
Well, thank you, Senator. That's a good question. I think I would answer that 2 ways. Number one is the structure of the bill sets out the circumstances in which cameras can be allowed in the facility. But I think more specifically, if you look over on the last page of page 12, lines 256 through 259, you'll read in there that it says, nothing in this article shall be construed to preclude the use of electronic monitoring devices, nor the admissibility of that in criminal proceedings as otherwise protected. So, to answer your question, you wouldn't have to get a court order that if the hidden camera were placed there and the law enforcement wanted to use that footage for a prosecution, it's still allowed under Section 31-8-149.
Well, my concern about that is I understand that the hallways, the cafeterias possibly, and some of the other common areas, that there is, in a facility such as that, there's really no expectation of privacy. But within the room, there would be. And so for a criminal investigation to be conducted in the room, there would require some type of sworn statement by an agency. And I'm not speaking in opposition of the legislation. Contrary is what I'm saying is if cameras, would you agree, Senator, that cameras that individuals can see, even those who intend to do wrong, act as strong deterrents?
Yes, Senator, absolutely, and thank you. And you really have gotten to the heart of what this bill is about. That when those cameras, if there's going to be a camera in the room, the greatest utility is a camera that's open and obvious so that everybody knows it's there and everybody knows they're being filmed. And again, it's only there because the resident asked for it to be there. And so, yes, Senator, you've really cut to the policy choice and the heart of the real value that's behind this with regard to cameras.
And does the Senator yield for one last question?
Yes, sir.
So if I had a loved one there and I felt that an employee was mistreating my loved one and has figured out a way around those cameras, would you agree that there is still a way through Georgia criminal law that I would be able to work with law enforcement and with a court order from a judge that allows the installation of that device in that private room, that there would still be an avenue for me to ascertain if my loved one was in fact being abused or being mistreated within that facility?
Yes, Senator, I think you're absolutely right. I think that would be the process and that would be allowed.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate your question.
Do you continue to yield?
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 41st for a question.
Do you yield?
I do for my friend from the 41st.
Thank you, sir. So I just want to be clear. Based on lines 256 to 259, which you referenced earlier, does this bill not allow for people to have hidden cameras in their rooms as long as they have some type of security concern?
Yes, it does.
So when it comes to this policy choice that you've proposed for us, is it not true that the policy choice means that you could have an open camera, but you can also have a secret camera if you have security concerns? Is that not true?
Well, let me answer it this way, and I think that's a good question, and Senator, we talked about this offline. Really, what is the effect of this language read with the entirety of the bill really goes to the utility of the data that's collected. And that's the heart of Section 31.8.149, which says that if used for a criminal purpose, if used in a criminal proceeding, then it is admissible. So the question becomes then, which behavior do we want to incent? What kind of model do we want? And it's the open and obvious camera that produces the kind of conduct that happens with human nature being what it is when the caregivers come in to tend to the people.
Do you further yield?
Yes.
I'm afraid I'm not being clear here. Does your bill allow for us to have out and open cameras, which will be deterrents for bad behavior, and allow us to have hidden cameras to catch criminal behavior that we could prosecute later on? Is that not in your bill?
Yes, it is.
So do you further yield?
Yes.
To be clear, your bill allows for open and obvious cameras and hidden cameras.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 21st with a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
I sure do. Thank you.
I am favorable to your bill, but I would like to ask you a question. You said in your remarks that by favoring this amendment, that it would gut the bill. All you're doing, and just explain to me, it still has the word criminal, it just adds civic and administrative. How does that, with criminal still in there, gut the bill? If you could explain that. I'm not an attorney, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure, I'll be happy to. So, again, the model that we're creating says that if you're going to have cameras in a facility, only those that are open and obvious can be used, or the data from those can be used in a civil or administrative proceeding, okay? May I continue, Mr. President, to answer the question?
You can continue to answer the question.
Okay, thank you. So if you open, and it limits the utility or usefulness of the data from a hidden camera to only criminal proceedings. So if you open the hidden camera up to use in any proceedings, then people could simply get the hidden camera, not the open camera, and now you've defeated the value of having open cameras, number one. Number two, you still leave the nursing home residents who may be a roommate of that particular resident, you still leave them subject to being caught and being surveilled, right? And number three, you leave the nursing home in this impossible position of what do they do? Do they need to take some action to protect the other residents in that same room or not? And unfortunately, the law right now is not instructive to that nursing home to tell them what their responsibilities are, what their rights are. We just don't know. And this provides that structure.
Well, thank you for the explanation.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. And Mr. President, I will yield the well. I see I'm out of time.
Senator's time has expired. The chair recognizes the senator from the 36th. Actually, we're gonna take up the amendment first. Chair recognizes the senator from the 25th to speak to amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, colleagues. I know the time is getting late here on day 40, but I first want to thank my colleague from the 18th for bringing this measure forward, and I know it's something that has been dealt with for quite some time, and it's unfortunate in today's society, today's world, that we even have to discuss these types of issues. But having known from experience, having family members who have stayed in nursing homes or been residents in nursing homes or assisted living places, I know the concerns and the struggles that a lot of families go through knowing that their loved ones are, in most cases, put in a very vulnerable position. Now, I can tell you a funny story that about my wife's grandmother, who was 98 years old. We called her Mama Flo. And Mama Flo had to go to an assisted living facility, in her late stages of life. She always had a good mind, but her body was failing on her. And she's a perfect example of someone that never turned down a good drink. And she would always love the fact when I came around, and because she always knew I would do exactly what she wanted her to do as far as fixing a cocktail. And I'd always remember when we'd go see her at a facility that she was living in, she would always complain because her hidden stash was seemingly had been messed with, and her belongings had been messed with. And we couldn't accuse anyone of taking her belongings because we weren't sure about where if she knew exactly what she was missing, what she wasn't missing. But that's a lighthearted example of when you have a loved one that is worried or concerned about a situation going on in their home that they are staying in at the time, because all you can go by is what they are telling you. And there's a lot of examples, and I've witnessed those examples too, having family members who were quadriplegics and were being in these facilities when they had bed sores that they had sustained from staying at a facility where they were not getting proper attendance and care. You also have plenty of examples where where people have been injured, beaten, raped. The worst examples of humanity that you can think of, and there's no evidence of that. And the only time that we have had evidence of that is when a video camera or a hidden video surveillance camera or a cell phone image would appear on that. So I commend the senator from the 18th for putting something forward that would make it legitimize having surveillance cameras within facilities. nowadays. And I think that's important. However, I don't see the reasoning behind, even though we're moving forward with allowing surveillance cameras to be present, to be individuals to be notified that they're present, and both for the family members, the employees, as well as the residents. I'm not sure exactly why, if you had a situation where a family did not feel like even the surveillance cameras were covering 100% of the area, which in probably most cases it won't be able to do that. I can't see the reasoning why having a camera that approaches it from a different angle or approaches it from a different viewpoint than the cameras that will be installed by the facilities. And to limit the ability, because all my amendment simply does is to allow for even hidden cameras can be used in civil, criminal, and administrative cases, just like the proposed cameras that are going to be issued by the facilities themselves. So to say that the amendment will make it a Wild West of opportunities for people to be harmed in some sort of way, or their privacy be damaged, I don't think it's necessarily that sincere. Because quite frankly, the reason why you have hidden cameras currently is because of the fact that you have loved ones who are concerned that there's no surveillance in particular rooms that are going on. And it's probably would lend the idea that if there's more surveillance cameras, there's probably going to be less likely to be more private cameras. However, in the situations where an individual or a family would like to have multiple angles to monitor their loved ones in a very vulnerable state, I don't necessarily see a good reason to limit the legal ramification or legal actions that could be taken by seeing a situation to go down with a undisclosed private camera that you couldn't necessarily see from the facility camera. So that's essentially all the amendment that I've put forward does, is it allows not only the privately owned or hidden cameras to be given the same rights and also be viewed upon the same as the cameras that are being broadcasted that are on the in viewpoint of everyone. So I'm happy to yield for questions, but I think it's a simple amendment, and I think it strengthens the bill, and I appreciate the senator from the 18th, and I definitely do not think it guts the bill. I wouldn't be bringing it forward if I thought that.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 21st with a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield.
Yes.
Can you explain to me what you're trying to accomplish by striking the word proceedings and adding the word action? What does that do on lines 257?
It gives action, legal action, and for the proceedings pertaining to criminal, civil, and administrative.
Okay. Thank you, Senator.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 48th with a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
Yes.
Thank you for bringing this amendment. I'm in favor of this amendment. Quick question. When the original language of the bill that we look at now says that the private footage that is obtained can only be used for criminal suit, does that mean that only an individual, such as like a nursing aide or a care assistant, can be charged with negligence or a crime?
I'm assuming that's what it is.
Great. And isn't it true that oftentimes in cases of especially negligence or lack of attention in a nursing home facility, that it could be an institutional issue in terms of understaffing, under-resourcing, that type of thing, so it's really not the fault of any individual aide who is lowest on the totem pole, underpaid, working hard, trying to do their best?
Yeah, I don't think you could, because there's a whole
litany of, I mean, there's a whole number of facilities that do it the right way. They do it perfectly. And I could sit here and name quite a few of them around the state that do a good job. They're well-staffed and they're well-trained and everything else, you know. But it's like anything else, it's the 20-80 rule, you know, 20% of your facilities are going to create 80% of your problems. And so, yeah, there's plenty of examples of facilities that, and probably the majority of facilities do it right. And then we're just trying to protect against those that, you know, could be understaffed, could be undertrained, a litany of things. So.
I concur. And this final question, if you yield.
Mm-hmm.
So doesn't expanding the language, as your amendment does very well, simply allow us to?
It just allows us to have a viewpoint from a lot of different angles. Like I said before, the reason why you had hidden cameras or private cameras is because a lot of facilities had no surveillance.
Right.
So now that you're opening it up and you actually have surveillance where the facilities are going to provide, it's probably less likely you'll have many private individuals putting in these hidden cameras. However, if they feel the need to do it, then I think we ought to give those same rights to those individuals that go the extra step as well.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Do you have more questions? Do you continue to yield?
I'll do one more.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 31st with a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Yield?
Yes.
So one question I have on this issue is, would your amendment, if an individual is in a room and has a roommate, would this amendment violate that person's rights?
I couldn't answer that question. You know, I'd have to turn to some of my legal scholars in the room to answer that appropriately for you.
Thanks, Senator.
Mm-hmm.
Senator has yielded the well. Chair recognizes the senator from the 11th to speak to the measure.
Mr. President, I want to thank the senator for the 18th for bringing this measure forward, and thank my colleagues in the Health Committee for improving the bill. You know, one of the things that this body is known for is being deliberative and measured in our approach to things, and I think this bill does strike that balance. And one of my concerns, of course, as a healthcare provider, is keeping our patients well. And I will say, you know, our facility manages, runs, owns a nursing home, so I'm intimately involved with the management of that facility. A lot of rural hospitals have depended on their nursing home to actually get them financially stable. Most nursing homes, if they're well run, actually show a profit, and that's unusual in rural health care. It's one of the few things that we have that keeps us fiscally stable. So I'm very concerned about anything that would go too far when it comes to changing that delicate balance. The other area that I'm concerned about, of course, is the fact that hidden cameras, while in the past perhaps the only thing that could be done, now that we're moving forward in more acceptance of video, we started with, you know, the cameras in police cars, and then we've got the cameras on the policemen themselves, and so I think this technology is allowing us to improve as a society. But the incidents that the senator from the 25th talked about, something such as a rape, to me, common sense would say a camera that everybody knew about would prevent that rape from happening. Unfortunately, a hidden camera would allow that rape to happen. Maybe you could catch the bad guy, but the harm has already been done. So I think The balance here in the bill as passed out of the Senate Health Committee, I think is a good spot. I think the amendment takes it too far. I think it'd be good common sense to move this bill forward as the Health Committee passed it, and then let time over the next year or two tell us if we need to add further measures to it. Mr. President, I yield the well.
All right, we are going to, there's a number of folks still left to speak, and it's dinner time, and we're going to stand at ease for 45 minutes. So we'll come back at 7:30 and pick up debate where we left off. Dinner's in the hallway. We don't want it to get cold, and certainly we've got a number of folks left to speak. The Senate will stand at ease for 45 minutes.